Hello and welcome to another episode of Talksicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged. Here at Talksicology, we talk all things addiction, recovery, and mental health. Tonight's guest, addiction professional and musician, Jonny Phillip. I'm your co-host, Jason Cabello, and as always, your host and mine, Joseph Gorordo. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Talksicology. As you can see, just me again, no Joseph. But there's something inside of me. Every time I make the intro, if Joseph's not going to be on, I can't take him off. I just feel like it feels like I'd be betraying him somehow. And that's the last thing I want to do, is betray Joseph Gorordo, because I love him very much. He is on a plane right now, coming back from Las Vegas, so we wish him safe travels. And he will be back next week. And you'll get some of the jibber jabber that you tune in for. I guess now it's just gibber. So yeah, you know, press radio and film, Greg. How about that? Let's run some press radio and film.
Press radio and film.
So we have a lot of sober birthdays, recovery anniversaries. Tony Trevino in the house. Let's see, Edward Furlong you might know him from such recent releases as Terminator 2. Celebrates 4 years in recovery. So congratulations, Edward Furlong. You know, we like to do this because press radio and film is we got that in 12-step meetings. They say to stay away from press radio and film when you talk about your whatever program you're in. You're supposed to stay away from it because you don't want to represent yourself. You don't want to come across as a representative for the 12-step program that you're in. So, you know, but we like to celebrate recovery here. We also have Carlos Truon, who is a good friend of the show, celebrates 10 years in recovery a couple of days ago. So congratulations. Chrissy Teigen, 1 year in recovery. 1 year in recovery, that's great. And the most important, in my humble opinion, my rock, Joseph Gorordo, 14 years of continuous sobriety. So congratulations, Joseph. We love you very much. We miss you. Again, Joseph will be back next week. So I'm just going to cut to the chase here and introduce today's guest. He is a talented musician. There's a lot going for him. We can talk about the bands that he's been in once he comes on. I know him as a co-worker from Recovery Unplugged, where he is an alumni coordinator out in Nashville, and probably one of the nicest fellows you'd ever want to meet. So let's just bring him on, Mr. Jonny Phillip.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason.
Thanks for being on, Jonny. I appreciate it. It's good to have you here.
It's a long time coming, man.
It is. So Jonny and I, you know, we had worked together for the same company for a little while without meeting each other. And my partner, Gabby, who used to work for Recovery Unplugged, you guys had you guys had to do some business talk or whatever. And Gabby, for anybody who does or doesn't know her, is she's not a very social person, very kind of stoic. As the kids would say, she doesn't fuck with a lot of people, but she was just like, you know, you and Jonny, I think, would be like best friends. I think you guys would definitely get along. And then we started a conversation back and forth, and then a few months back, I got to go to Nashville and visit and meet Jonny in person. And Jonny showed up at the alumni meeting, and I'm like sitting outside talking to some people. Jonny pulls up in his 70s Adidas tracksuit, listening to Jerry Rafferty, and I'm just like, there's there's a guy who knows what he wants out of life. Like this guy is just so man. Like you've made a huge impression on me, man, and you're just a great energy. So welcome to the show, Jonny.
Thank you so much. I'm really surprised that you remembered that encounter with Jerry Rafferty in the background.
You don't get that a lot. You know what I mean? You don't. That's not something you run across every day. Because you and I, we were into a lot of same music. We have some mutual friends from before, like our active addiction, from like the music world and stuff. And I know we've had some brief conversations about some deep dives into music, and it's some of those bands that you don't get to talk about with a lot of people. So it's really cool to have you on, man. So let's get started to know more. The world wants to know a little bit more about Jonny Phillip. So let's start. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And just start with that. When were you born?
Yeah, I was born in Kenosha, Wisconsin. If you're familiar with that place.
I'm from Chicago. I know all about Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's where Happy Days was taking place. But
Joseph.
I only lived there until I was about 9. I went to Catholic school up until I was 9 years old. Thank you, Mom and Dad. So I was so happy when we moved to a suburb of Milwaukee and got out of Kenosha. I always thank my dad for getting our whole family out of Kenosha because, I mean, no offense to any of my family that are still in Kenosha, but once you're in Kenosha, it's like you never leave. And I had huge hopes and dreams and aspirations. And so once we moved to the suburb of Milwaukee, that's when I started listening to punk rock. I started skateboarding a lot more. I also played sports, but I only played sports until about like a freshman in high school. I made JV basketball my freshman year, and then I was the best point guard on the team. And the first 5 games that I was playing in, I never got started. So I was like, okay, maybe sports aren't for me. That's actually when I started smoking pot, smoking cigarettes.
Okay.
Right when I was 14. So that was kind of like the beginning of me starting to rebel because I didn't like competition. I didn't like people telling me what to do. That's when I started hating cops.
Whoa.
And that's a strong word. Sorry, hating, disliking cops.
Well, I mean, if you were into punk rock and skateboarding in the late 80s, early 90s, you would get messed with by cops quite a bit. You know what I mean? Because you're like skating in parking lots or, buildings when they're closed and they kick you out of everywhere and you just think, and especially at that age, you already think the world is against you. So,
Totally. Punk rock didn't help that at all.
No, I know.
I mean, it definitely changed my life for the better, but there's definitely some things that punk rock sprouted in me where I think were maybe bad seeds. But besides the point, that's like right around the time I started using. I really started drinking hard around 16 or 17. I always hung out with an older crowd, and not saying that they were all alcoholics and crazy, but like that's what we did on the weekends and some nights that we all had off.
Yeah.
And I took it a little too far, kind of probably right when I was about 17 or 18. And then when I was 18 and 19, that's when I learned that if you start drinking again in the morning, you start feeling a lot better. And that's when things got absolutely atrocious. So I was 18 and 19, and I was already a full-blown alcoholic. And I kind of prided myself on how much that I can drink. I would pick on the biggest guy at the bar, and I'd pick on him and then ask him to buy me a shot. And then I'd just bother him. I'd be like, I bet you I can drink more than you. And then, of course, I would just pick on the biggest guy and outdrink him. It was like a very, there's like junkie pride.
Yeah.
I had like drunky pride.
Drunky pride, yeah. No, and that's the thing, when you're in that kind of community, you can either be celebrated for being that guy, or you think you're being celebrated, but it's not really frowned upon too much. And coming from that world, you have the crust punks, you have just your regular drinking guys, and then you have straight edge kids. So The spectrum is, it depends. Like, it's when you hear, like, whenever you start going to meetings in AA or NA, you're going to find whatever it is you're looking for. If you're looking for trouble, if you're looking for somebody to go out and, like, relapse with, if you're looking for a fucked up relationship, you're going to find it. Same thing when you're hanging out in bars and hanging out at clubs, that's what you're going to get. So how long, so it immediately was a problem for you, right? Like, in your teen years, you were,
Oh yeah, I got 3, maybe 4 underage drinking tickets before I was 21. So
Yeah.
that was the immediate, like, who gets like 3 or 4 underage drinking tickets before they're 21? I
Jonny
don't know.
Phillip.
Yeah, I guess I have.
Yeah.
But then, I started playing in bands. My very first band that got signed when I was 20 years old, just, fresh out of high school, the Benjamins, we got signed to Drive Through Records, and we're immediately on these big tours with like Sum 41, Real Big Fish. We're on the Warp Tour that summer, and going out on the road was a lot of fun. But, alcoholism is very progressive. So that disease of mine just went up like a ramp.
Right.
And, when I was 23, that's when I got my first DUI. That was a real wake up call for me and my family. I remember when my mom got me from jail. I remember her saying, "Hey, maybe this is a wake up call, and for all of us, and we need to reassess how much you're drinking and
Right.
why you're doing it the way that you are." So I kind of pushed it aside, and I kind of manipulated my parents a little bit to thinking that I had it under wraps. And then when I was 27, I was a couple of years into playing with this band Limbeck from Southern California, and bunch of great guys, and I'm still actively in the band, almost 18 years later. But we had this very bad cycle of drinking very hard. We kind of fed off each other in that capacity.
Right.
But when I was 27, my mom actually took me to my general practitioner at the time, and he was in the program of recovery. And he actually basically told me to go to a meeting. He's like, "John, I think you need to go to a meeting. I think you need to get a sponsor. You need to start working the steps." And I was like, no.
Right.
Because that force-fed Catholicism when I was younger, the G word, the God word, it was really something that I was not interested in. And I didn't realize that religion and spirituality are totally 2 different entities.
Yeah. Thank God for that.
No pun intended, Jake.
Yeah.
But I kicked back on that super hard, and I was just like, isn't the going to a meeting in the big book, isn't that about God? It's all about religion. And he's just like, "Man, you really don't get it, do you?" But I had to go out there, and I had to get something like 5 more years of hard drinking.
Yeah.
And I mean, terrible withdrawals. I can't believe I never had a seizure. I felt like a lot of the times that I was going to have one, but I would drink to counteract any negative withdrawal symptoms. And I would drink for days, weeks, months. I remember when I was 27, I didn't like myself very much, and music was not doing for me what I thought it would be doing at that point. I remember I was like, I'm going to get fucked up every day of me being 27 because I want to die.
Wow, that's pretty. That's pretty harsh. Did you drink every day of 27?
I
Most
did.
of it? Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean,
did.
so
Go
I
ahead.
mean, what were you drinking? How much you were drinking? Because I mean, drinking every day could mean a glass of wine with dinner, which some people do, and lead very productive, normal lives, and can put it down if they want to. But I'm assuming it wasn't that. It wasn't a beer after work.
No, not at all. I mean, this was a handle of vodka,
Oh shit.
2 bottles of whiskey, 30 rack of beer, 4 bottles of wine. I mean, I can, if I drink, I can drink a lot.
Start when you wake up. Was it
Oh, yeah.
first thing?
Oh.
Man, honestly, I've known, working in the recovery world for 5 years and just knowing people my whole life who have drank. You maintained a pretty youthful appearance for somebody who drank that heavy, and your faculties are all there. I have one of my best friends from childhood. He's out there like homeless, and I think he's in Colorado somewhere, and he's got wet brain. And, he probably drank less than what you're talking about. And just like, it's just like every time he would just get like degenerate until it was like talking to a 5-year-old sometimes. So you are extremely fortunate to come out of it, A, looking like you do, and B, just being, sharper than I am. So,
That
so no, honestly, man, like, you're one of the lucky ones. So,
I really am.
I don't know if congratulations are in order, but just saying like, be thankful for that, man. Cause I'm sure you are, I don't need to tell you to be thankful for anything, but I'm sure we both see a lot of people who aren't so fortunate.
I mean, I really am lucky, truly, but I definitely have had some health repercussions because of it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have wet brain, but I definitely have a memory issue, and it's something that I didn't have 10, 15 years ago.
Well, I mean, that could just be being a guy in your 40s too. A lot of.
There's a lot of question marks there.
There is, but
Also, I had at the very end of my drinking, and I don't know if you want to get into that just yet, but I was drinking about a handle of vodka a day for about that. Of course, this memory is hazy. Maybe 3 to 5 months, somewhere in that zone. A handle a day, every day. And I was maybe 25, 30 pounds heavier than I am now. I still have stretch marks on my legs and my stomach from all of that. They'll never go away. And I had hepatitis of the liver. And I didn't know what that was when my doctor, the last time I went to treatment, I didn't know what that was when he told me. But apparently you can get that from drinking too much.
Right, yeah. And were you getting like brain fog and everything from that? Because that, for me personally, I was an IV user and, shared needles and all that shit. And I had gotten tested the last time I had gone to treatment, and it was negative for Hep C. And then I was out in Nashville with Joseph. We were out there for a conference, and I was just like, I had felt like if you ever smoked a lot of weed, like the day after you smoke just a ton of weed and you're just sort of like brain dead, like that's how I felt for like a week. Like I couldn't remember anything. I remember, our boss at Recovery Unplugged, Andrew Sossin, was out there, and he was just like asking me some questions, and like I felt like I was fucked up. And then I started getting like, my feet started swelling up. And then I went to the doctor and I was like, something's wrong. So they did a full checkup. And then like the doctor came in and told me and was like, she very somber came in and was like, Mr. Cabela, I have to tell you something. Like you have hepatitis C. And I was like, oh fuck, that's it. Thank God, cause I knew that I could fix it. And that, it wasn't just my brain wasn't just deteriorating completely. And then,
And you had an answer of what was going on. Because when you have a health issue like that, an answer is what you need. So then you can get to that problem,
Correct
that problem.
And then, the medication getting rid of that's a whole other story of months and months. But like I said, man, like, thank God that was it. Thank God that it was something that was easily fixed that I could pinpoint and say, so now everything else that happens after that's just, wasted brain cells too. But I get that.
Well, it's nice that any intravenous drug user that has hepatitis C or recurring hepatitis C, that they have that medicine now. I mean, you basically take pills for like a month, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cured.
And from what it was bad. My experience, it was, I would say at worst, unpleasant. I have some friends that did the Inferior. That was the medication before. I can't pronounce it correctly. but that was the medication that they had like maybe like 7, 8 years ago. And I had a friend who said like that was complete hell for like a couple of months. So, I'm going to knock on wood that I got that taken care of. And it wasn't so bad.
I'm glad that you're okay from all that, because I've heard little bits and pieces of your story, and it sounds like things were, I mean, you were headed towards death.
Oh yeah, man. Like I've said it on here before. My sponsor, who was my sponsor a couple of years before I got clean, and my mom. I was out in Trenton, New Jersey one time. I had come into a little bit of money. My grandmother passed away and left me and my cousins her house. So we all got together and sold it. And I got a little bit of money, which was the equivalent of $1 million to me, because I was like a nickel and dime, on the street drug addict. Like I couldn't, if I had like $40 in a day to like get what I needed, like that was a pretty good day. So to come into that kind of money, I was like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do with your money? Well, I'm going to go to Philly and New Jersey where all the good dope is. I told myself it was for other reasons, but I knew why I was going out there. And I had gone out there in January, like end of January. And by Valentine's Day, I had run out of all my money. I had, my friend who I was staying with, like, kicked me out. He's like, you can't be around my kids. I don't know what you're doing, but you need to get the fuck out. And, luckily I've mended that friendship. And I'm walking the streets in Trenton, New Jersey, trying to get people to send me money, because I really needed the money to get home. And then, my mom and my sponsor at the time were like praying that I got locked up. Like that was their best answer. That was like the best that they could hope for me at that time out of my life, was like going to prison. So yeah,
for addicts, alcoholics, sometimes prison is the safest place for you.
Right. But I yeah, like it maybe in the beginning, but there's just, you could get in just as much trouble inside as you can outside. But yes. So it's one of those things where it's like, at least we'll know he's safe. At least we know where he is tonight,
Right.
But yeah, what a crazy whirlwind of just the way I got back and how things started falling into place. And then I went to treatment one other time, and then left, and then went back to detox, and then made it to Recovery Unplugged. And everything else then has just been like, my life has gotten progressively better. Like I'm in one
6 years ago.
Yeah, just over 6 years ago. And it's like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is what people who didn't do self-destructive things experience in life. It's like your life keeps getting a little bit better. Like, I went into treatment. I got a job right behind Recovery Unplugged so I could stay close. And it was at a place where I could like cook veggie burgers and they would feed me. And then I got a better job after that. And then I was living in halfway for a long time. And then I found somebody in the program who was renting a room, and then I got to stay there, and then moved into a nicer place. And like fast forward, I'm like living in like a really cool neighborhood in Austin, Texas with my girlfriend, and in a healthy relationship, and we got dogs. And it's like, this is a life that I never thought was possible,
Yeah, cool job in treatment and recovery.
Yeah. So anyway, enough about me. Let's, where's your life now compared to where you were? Well, no, before we get to that, let's talk about how it felt when you were at that point, when you knew that this wasn't gonna, that the drinking yourself to death hasn't worked yet. You know what I mean? And do you still want to continue to do that? Is this still the plan that you have? Or is some of these things starting to sink in, like what the doctor told you, what your family was telling you? Like where were you at in your, and like the feeling of it when you're like, shit, maybe I can't do this anymore?
When I was 27 and not really wanting to live and just completely directionless, that's a whole different thing. But towards the end of my usage, that feeling, I mean, and I tell this, sometimes I tell like mini versions of my stories when we're having group or something. And when I tell a little mini version of my story, I touch on when, like, the last couple months I was drinking, I would wake up from a total blackout. And I don't, sometimes I'd be in a strange house. Sometimes I'd be on the floor of my house. Sometimes I'd be in my bed. I would always have urinated on myself from that night. And so I'd have to change my clothes really quick, get my bearings. And then if I woke up at maybe like 6 a.m., I'd have to start Googling where it was open that I can buy some more vodka, because I obviously finished everything that I had the night before.
Wow.
So it's like that feeling of being in my bed, shaking, sweating, thinking that I'm going to have a seizure or stroke and die, and like trying to Google something at 6, 7 in the morning. Also, Milwaukee has third shift bars, which is kind of a crazy thing to even think of. For all these third guys that get off of work, they can go get drunk at 6, 7 in the morning. So I would look for those too, but then I'm like, do I want to be drinking in a bar right now? I'd really like a bottle of vodka.
Right.
But I always think of that, like whenever I think of my deepest, darkest part of my bottom, I always think of being in bed looking up a grocery store or something that is open that I could go buy vodka at.
Yeah, because I mean, when you wake up like that, it's the same sort of feeling when you're an opiate addict. You wake up, and then if you don't have something ready for you, like that, you have to, like, there's no choice. And that's a huge thing that I found when I started reading, some 12-step literature. And it's like that feeling when it's like, I don't even want to use right now. Like that, I really don't, but I don't have a choice. Like I'm using against my will. Like it's just what I need to do to keep going. That gut-wrenching bottom, that gut-wrenching feeling that people call a bottom. And when you live it for years and years, and it's not just like 1 second that you look up and there's an epiphany that you need to change things, but when that's like your everyday life, that's some dark shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And somebody's on the chat right now asking how I got money for vodka. I was still a functioning musician at that time. And at that time I was playing with Tommy Stinson from the Replacements and Guns N' Roses. I mean, I was making pretty decent money playing with Tommy, so I would stash away every dollar that I could possibly stash away. And I also worked at a restaurant too, so if I needed vodka, I would hustle, pick up a shift or two, and I would drink secretively at work. I would take a big Gatorade bottle, 2 of them, dump half out, vodka in the other half of the bottles, mix them, take them to work, put my initials on them so nobody would pick it up at work and accidentally drink my drink, and then I'm caught. And I would just do anything to hustle. I would always ask my dad for money, ask my mom for money, ask friends for money, but then I would also hustle pretty hard too.
So many similarities in our story, man. It's insane. It's like, yeah, and working in restaurants too. It's like, a lot of people will turn a blind eye to it, like if you're doing your job and you're not making a mess of things, like he's probably drinking, but you know what I mean? It's Johnny. We fucking love Johnny. But, I found out yesterday that you played with Tommy Stinson, and the Replacements are one of my all-time favorite bands. And, being raised in the music business, it's hard for me to like get like kind of like starstruck and get really impressed by stuff, but that is fucking impressive, man. We have to put some Replacement songs on the we have a Spotify list for Toxicology, so we'll put some of that stuff on there. But they are, if anybody who's not familiar with the Replacements, they are a band, I guess you could call them sort of like punk. They got their start. They got their start in punk, and then kind of softened up a little bit, but not really. From Minneapolis, and they are known as one of the probably one of the hardest drinking bands of that time.
Right.
So was he still drinking when you were playing with him?
He was, yeah, and we were definitely a pretty bad pair together. The other guys in the band didn't drink very much. They were more like weed smokers. And so Tommy and I, bars really hard, hitting the vodka and the Maker's Mark at his house super hard. He actually was just in town in Nashville. He played a house show because he's doing like a house show tour. And I went to go hang out with him, and we caught up for like 20 minutes. And he's actually like 150 something days sober right now.
That's fucking amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
You have to get him on the show. I don't think I'd be able to talk. I think I would just be like, I'd be stuttering the whole time. My girlfriend Gabby just called us out on our cool shirts. I guess that's not calling out. I guess that's a compliment. Thank you, Gabby.
Thanks, Gabby.
Yeah, but man, that's awesome. So I know being a musician, it's like the dream is to, of course, like that's what you want to. You want to be a professional musician. You want to have some recognition, maybe not so much fame, but that's what you want to do for a living. So, is it that much harder when you're drinking yourself pretty much to sleep every night, like having this little thing like, I'm 27 years old, I haven't made it yet, like that's feeding your alcoholism?
Oh, it definitely did, but you're so good at drinking and repeating the cycle every day and playing and trying to not drink enough to blow the show, which there's definitely shows that I did not perform very well.
Right.
The whole band would be pissed at me. But set aside from that,
Yeah.
you get really good at what you do, even if it's something horrifically bad for you.
Yeah. Your sound is going out. I'm not sure if that's your headphones or your.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Yeah.
Perfect.
Great, and yeah, that's obviously another line of work where it's like even if you're playing bars, like you're getting free drinks, people there, you're probably friends with the bartenders. Like you could probably when they asked the question, how did you get the money for your vodka? You could probably go out at night with $0 in your pocket and still get drunk.
100%. I did that all the time. In some bars in Milwaukee, I would drink on credit.
Yeah.
I would just have like a standing tab.
Did you pay all those back?
I did.
Did you? That's after getting sober.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty big of you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess so. I guess there's a difference there because I guess that's that's a business establishment. That's somebody. It's not their fault that you were in there drinking, because I'm sure there's a plot. I'm sure there's some drug dealer in Miami who one day is just going to happen upon this podcast and be like, that motherfucker, he's in Austin, Texas. Okay, well,
he owes me $500.
Oh, 500, I wish. Yeah, but no, that's pretty cool, man. So let's talk about, you made the decision that you couldn't do this anymore, right? Or you started feeling like that you didn't want to do this anymore. Let's talk about the last, let's say, couple weeks of your active drinking.
Yeah. So I'm to the point where I'm drinking a handle of vodka a day, and with this girl Becky at the time, and I did not want to get out of that. I know that I hated it and I was going to die, but I didn't want out of it. I had my best friend with me.
Yeah, it's your creature comfort.
Yeah, and she actually called my best friend Ben Pearlstein, which Ben used to manage Tommy Stinson. That's how I was able to meet Tommy and get to play with him. So I thank Ben for many different things in my life. But so Ben had a call from Becky saying, like, John is not doing well. I mean, he's going to die if he keeps doing this. You need to come here. You need to intervene. We need to help him. So Ben talked to Tommy because he was living in Hudson, New York by Tommy at the time. Tommy basically bought him a flight to go to Milwaukee with no return flight. Just like, go take care of him.
Wow.
He needs to get into treatment. I didn't have insurance at the time. I had no resources. So Ben just came, and we messaged. Well, not we. Sorry. He messaged a bunch of people what to do, and my friend Heather West, who's a publicist for Riot Fest in Chicago, she said, involved with music cares, and they can get you a scholarship somewhere, hopefully. So there's like a 10 to 12 page form that you have to fill out. I was in no shape to fill that thing out and submit it and all that. So
Right.
Ben basically got all the paperwork together. I was an absolute zombie. I remember the day that we were filling all that out to fax it to them and send it in. We were by this FedEx Kinko's printing it off because of course I didn't have a printer at the time. And next door
Do you have a printer now?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
At home, you have a printer.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking boss. The gifts of recovery.
I know I'm getting somewhere now. The gifts of recovery are endless. So there's this bar next door called Halliday's, and I was like, oh my God, Ben's going inside to print this stuff off. I can actually slip into Halliday's and have a couple drinks really quick, just slam shots maybe. And I just zombified, like walked over to Halliday's, and the door was locked. And here I am like beating on the door, and I'm like, somebody let me in. I needed a drink that bad.
Right.
And Ben must have saw me outside walk up to Halliday's, and he went and grabbed me by the shirt. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? Get away from there. Come with me. So then we went to this cafe on Brady Street where I used to live in Milwaukee. And he basically asked me, 800 questions to fill it all out, and then had to get YouTube links together to prove that I'm a musician. And I sent it all into this girl, Jennifer Leff, who was working in New York for Music Cares. And basically they fast tracked it, and within a day they're like, okay, we can scholarship you up to 70% of your stay, and we found you a bed at Hazelden in Center City, Minnesota. So I was like, okay, bet. I could have actually gotten in probably that next morning. This was on May 17th. And my birthday was the next day, though, May 18th. And I'm like, I'm not getting fucking sober on my birthday. Are you kidding me? I'm like, I want at least one last day to get fucked up.
Right.
So drank on my birthday, and actually was a horrible time. I didn't have fun at all. And then I did the interview, or the pre-screen rather, with Hazelden on May 19th. And they were like, okay, we can get you in tomorrow afternoon. So just hook up a flight, get here. And so I ended up going in on May 20th. And May 20th, I actually didn't drink going in there, because the last week or two when Ben was in town, if Ben wasn't at the house, my mom would stay there. They had a 24-hour watch on me so I wouldn't slip off and go get vodka somewhere. And if I headed towards the front door, it was like shit was on, So yeah, I had basically like 4 people watching me for a couple of weeks, 24 hours a day. And then they tapered me down. So it was first, I had a really strong 6-pack of Belgian beer. I drank that one day, and then I had a bottle of wine the next day, and then a half bottle of wine, and then a quarter bottle of wine. And then on that last day before I went in, I didn't want to go to treatment and be one of those stories of like, oh my God, I walked in the door super fucked up.
Right.
I meant it. I wanted to be better at that point. It started clicking already to me.
I definitely want to touch on this because, if people are watching this, they know about a lot of what we're talking about. But the dangers of detoxing yourself, especially off alcohol, is fucking deadly. Dear friend of mine, Justin Enoch, who passed away trying to detox himself off alcohol. We've had his mom on here a couple of times to talk about, Lisa Pascarosa, to talk about her experience and, him trying to detox himself. And people die from trying to detox themselves off of alcohol or benzos or whatever. And it's so important that if you're going to detox, or if you have a loved one that's going to detox, they're not bullshitting when they say like it's not safe to just cut them off cold turkey and see what happens. They could seize and fall and hit their head. A million things could go wrong. So if you have somebody who that you're hoping to detox, like definitely seek some professional help, look into it, and do it safely. So yeah, sorry.
No. I'm really glad that you said that, because I don't know if a lot of people realize that. Benzos and alcohol in particular, though, I always think that benzos are just alcohol in pill form.
Right.
But
and they say that when you when you detox off of heroin and opiates, you feel like you're going to die. But when you're detoxing off of benzos and alcohol, you actually can die.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So it was good that I tapered. Hazelden told my family to do that, but I should have just drank straight up till walking in the door. Absolutely.
Right. Were you getting shaky towards the end of your
I
taper?
was. I was, yeah. And also, it was a super hot day in Milwaukee for some reason on May 20th, which never happens. It was like a 90-degree day. And I remember I got on the plane. Benny, actually, God bless his heart, flew with me and walked me through the doors of Hazelden himself, just so I didn't veer off somewhere and go MIA.
Thanks, Ben. That's a good
Yeah.
friend. That's a good friend there, man. Somebody who will just put their life aside to make sure you get help. I'm sure you feel the same.
Absolutely, man. We got on the plane and there was no AC on in the plane, and I remember I had a hoodie on. I've never been sweating and so uncomfortable in my entire life. I actually thought I was gonna die.
The cold
But,
sweats.
oh my, terrible. Yeah, and then when I got to Hazelden, you have to spend 2 days in medical there at least, just to be medically cleared to get it. And they do a blood draw right away, and you get your labs within those 2 first days that you're there. And then that's when the doctor revealed that I had hepatitis of the liver. And actually, those first 2 days, I was bullshitting myself. I was like, I don't want to be here. This is not for me. I was like, when I get out of here, I'm going to be able to have a glass of wine with dinner.
Right.
And then once the doctor told me that I had hepatitis of the liver, I actually understood why I couldn't drink ever again. Because the doctor looked at my charts. My liver enzymes are almost 1,000, which they're supposed to be 60 below. And he looked at my charts. He's like, John, I've been doing this for over 2 decades. If you leave here and drink like that again, you will not see 40. I guarantee it.
Wow.
That's when I threw up the white flag. And I was like, okay, tell me what to do. And I'm going to do it. And I ended up doing it all.
First time in treatment?
I did 2 state-ran detox before that, but technically first time in treatment.
First time going through the full continuum of like a 28 to 32 day program. That's incredible, man. Like, and that's beautiful recovery there. 2 guys who got how old were you when you got sober?
2 days into being 33.
33. So, 2 guys who were well into adulthood who got it. Me, it took me 20 treatments. You won. Some people don't need treatment. Some people get it and do it themselves, but it's possible, man, no matter where you are. And you don't have to be, a man of a certain age or a human of a certain age to get this. You could get it when you're young. You could get it when you're in your 60s. It's never too early or too late to find recovery.
Right. I agree. It's never too late to do anything. I went back to college and did 4 years of college when I was 36, thanks to being sober.
Yeah. Same here.
Awesome.
And I have to give a shout out to Music Cares too, because Music Cares helped me as well. They do great work, man. I can't say enough about Music Cares. They helped me. I had 0 funds, and they made it so I didn't even have to think about what I wanted to do next, as long as I kept on doing the right thing that they were gonna help out. So big shout out to Music Cares.
That is so cool, man. I mean, they saved my life 100%. No doubt about it. And
Right.
It sounds like they saved yours too.
Absolutely, 100%. Frank, 58, 1 time in treatment for Recovery Unplugged. Thank you, Frank. What a miracle, huh? I love it.
More.
Good. Great stuff, man. So, man, I knew this was going to happen. We were going to start just going on. And so let's talk about what happened after you got out of treatment. You hit the ground running. You started doing 12-step stuff. What did you do besides going back to school?
Pretty funny you ask. I didn't really like music for a while.
Okay. Hey,
I'll just rigorous honesty right there.
Yeah, you're here. That's what matters.
I tried to do a bunch of meetings and I didn't quite click. Tried a lot of different ones. But I actually went to a therapist like 2-3 days a week to start off once I left. And I got a temporary sponsor, this guy Patrick, for a bit. And then I just started touring again and got super busy and just made excuses to not partake in my recovery. And I did that for a while, for about 2 years. And then that's when I decided to move to Nashville, because being sober in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is pretty tough. There's like 8 bars to every corner. That's where all my bad behavior happened. Miller owns like 80% of the city.
Right.
They call it Beer City because of the amount of microbreweries they have there.
Yeah.
And people will go to a restaurant and order Bloody Marys at 7:30 in the morning. Just, they don't, in other cities and other states, they don't drink like that. So I know that a geographical change is not the answer, but I definitely couldn't live in Milwaukee anymore. It was just too much for me.
Yeah.
So I decided on Nashville because of a girl. Ended up ultimately not working out with her, but that's okay. Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And when I came down to Nashville, I actually started to try to go to meetings again. And of course, I like kind of lazied it out and stopped doing it. And was in a really terrible abusive relationship. And I started working all the time. Then I went back to college. So I went back to college at 36, finished at 40. And then once I finished college, I was like, okay, I got to start working in treatment. That's like the end goal for me, because music was always my plan A. I didn't know what my plan B was because I didn't have one.
Right.
But once I went to treatment, I was like, I got to work on plan B.
God, if somebody would just open a music-based treatment center, that would have been perfect for you.
Nice one, Jason.
Thank you.
It's a really weird story how I came to be at Recovery Unplugged. But once I started working there, I started going to more meetings. And actually, I met my sponsor through somebody that would come to play Tune-Up Tuesday 2 years ago when I first started working there. And I've been working with my sponsor, been working the steps with him. I've always worked the steps like a la carte. And I'm just going to be honest there. And I definitely wasn't living a sober life emotionally.
Right.
You know, like I
was
was definitely a dry drunk. I was super reactive, holding resentments over everybody for every little thing. But the last 2 years, I've definitely worked on all of that. And I kind of regret not working the steps all the way through sooner and getting a sponsor that I'm actually working with for a long period of time and going to meetings and finding the right ones and finding the right support. But I have it now. So that's all that matters, right?
And it's one of those things, man. There's no perfect recovery, no perfect way to find recovery. It's like one of those things, as long as you're putting the work in, you know what I mean? As long as you're putting forth the effort, honestly, like at whatever pace it is,
Right.
you know, I feel that you're going to gain something from it.
Yeah, I agree, man. Do you want me to tell you the little kind of Cliff Notes version of how I hooked up with RU?
Sure.
So, I mean, not a lot of people know this, but I'm just going to put it out there.
Put it out there.
Okay. I had a child when I was 18, and I definitely destroyed the relationship with him when around like 1.5, 2 years old. And I haven't talked to him in 23 years.
Wow.
So it's an uphill battle that I've been trying to fight back into his life, and I still haven't successfully gotten in it. But anyways, 2 years ago, I was like, I need to make a step to work to get back in Colin's life. So I made a post on Facebook saying, hey, does anybody know a family therapist in Nashville? Like, not asking for a friend, literally asking for me.
Right.
And somebody that I worked with in Milwaukee, who also lives in Nashville now, weirdly, he messaged me, this guy, he's like, call Ed Brinson. Don't call anybody else. I'm like, okay. So I called him, and I told him what was going on, and I wanted to get back in my son's life. And we had a couple sessions about it and made a plan. And I told him that I was trying to get my LADAC in the state of Tennessee to be a licensed counselor. And he said that
LADAC, for those who don't know, is...
Go ahead.
No, please, you tell me. I'm asking.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were going to say it. So in the United States, through NADAC, you can become a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. But in Tennessee, it's called LADAC. It's you're licensed to become an alcohol and drug counselor. And I'll also get reciprocity working my LADAC in other states if I were to move and still wanted to practice being a counselor. So I was on the way to get my LADAC, but I didn't know where to start to get my LADAC. It's like ungoogleable, right? You can't go online and say, where do I get my LADAC in the state of Tennessee? Nothing really pops up. You have to find somebody that specializes in helping, like a consultant. So Ed said, hey, call my friend Nan. I've known her for 20, 30 years. She helps people get their LADAC in the state of Tennessee. So I'm like, okay, this is getting weird, right? Because I met this wonderful guy who helped me come up with a plan, get reconnected with my son, and then got introduced to Nan, who has been working in treatment for almost 40 years here in Nashville, helps people get their LADAC, took me on as a supervisor for LADAC. And the first month after we started working together, she goes, we got to get you a job in treatment because to get your LADAC, you need like 4,000 job hours if you have a human degree like I do. So I went into her office one day for supervision, and she said, hey, you need to leave here right now. Go bring your resume to this recovery center that's 15 minutes from your house called Recovery Unplugged. They're hiring right now. And I know somebody that works there. We can get you in. And they also deal with music. And so we looked up the website, and I was like, oh, my God, this is too good to be true. I'm like, okay. I took my resume. I went over to RU, and I rang the front door, and I gave my resume to Madeline, who was working at the front desk. And a couple of weeks later, I got an interview with Chuck and Suzanne and started working there and started out as a tech. And then now I'm in alumni. But pretty crazy story, right?
It is. It is. I love it. I bet you saw some pretty cool videos when you got on that website for Recovery Unplugged.
I did.
They have great content. Say that again?
My friend Jason made them.
Cool, man. That's awesome. All right, man. So I wanted to wait till we were towards the end to start talking about music because I knew if we would have started on that, we wouldn't have gotten we wouldn't even have gotten into recovery stuff. So I think it's time for the spinny wheel.
Okay, hit.
There once was a wheel, it was a special wheel, it was a magical wheel, it was the best damn wheel, it's the spinny wheel of songs. Da-da-da-da.
Speaking of great content, that was all Joseph. I had nothing to do with that. So every time it plays, I get so jealous.
Good job.
All right, so we're going to spin the wheel here. It's going to come up on a subject, and we're going to, I'll go ahead, and then you could follow. And then, we need to talk about music more. Next time we hang out, we'll just drink some coffee and do song for song, which is a great game. Song that makes you cry. Wow.
That's so easy.
Is it? Okay, well then you go ahead because I feel like the main two I've mentioned on here quite a few times.
Okay.
What's yours?
Granddaddy, the song Jeb the Humanoid.
Oh, dude, I fucking love that song so much.
For those out listening to Land, it's all about this family that makes this robot named Jed the Humanoid. He's a robot that helps the family. The family starts ignoring him, going on lots of vacations, living their everyday life, and ignoring him. And the robot gets sad, and he starts drinking, and he ends up drinking himself to death.
He fizzled and popped.
Yes, he did.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I will. You know what? I'm a huge Jason Lytle fan, huge Granddaddy fan. Weeping Willow off the same album is another one. Just that little piano riff. Oh, see. Oh, Johnny, I love having you on here, man. We could go on with music for all night. So we could continue this conversation though. Come to Austin. I'll come back to Nashville and we'll get it going. But great song, great one.
One more that also makes me cry too is Spiritualized. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now floating in space.
That's a great one. I have some spiritualized stuff back here. Funny story. First time I ever did any kind of opiate, my friend had Opium, and that album had just dropped. So we're talking 94, 95, was it? Something
Yes.
like that. And he was like, here's some Opium, check out this album, and put on Ladies and Gentlemen, We're Floating in Space. And that was my introduction to opiates and to spiritualized. So,
Oh my God, beautiful moment.
I chased that moment for many, 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 many years. Unsuccessfully. All right, so now we're going to get to the rapid fire question time.
It's rapid fire question time.
What was your first punk rock show?
Oh God. Oh man, that's tough.
So mine was
Go ahead.
1987, Dead Milkmen at the Cameo Theater in Miami.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And
It was pretty-
I just thought of mine.
What was it?
It was 7 Seconds at the Unicorn in Milwaukee at the Out the Shizzy tour.
Aren't you going to see 7 Seconds tonight?
I am.
Full circle. Walk
Full
together,
circle.
rock together. Great stuff. Best movie soundtrack.
Oh man, there's so many. I would have to go on board and say
Give us three then. Give us three.
Virgin Suicides, Virgin
Yes.
Suicide. Rushmore is up there, maybe tied with Royal Tenenbaum soundtrack as well.
That's a good one.
Go ahead. What's one of yours?
Ghost World.
Oh, that's a great soundtrack.
Yeah. That and Valley Girl. Valley Girl's another one of my favorite from the 80s. That is a super good one. Man, we need to hang out and talk more about music. But okay, so right now, the 21st of July, 2022. How many days sober do you have?
Oh God. May 20th, 2012. I would look on my phone at my sober counter, but I'm using my phone right now.
Give me a guesstimate.
Shit, so there's 352 days in a year. 352 times 10 plus 61. Oh boy. I'm going to guess 14. 12,000 something.
All right, I'm going to take your word for that one. My math is terrible. All right. So, being that we probably surround ourselves or are surrounded by some pretty, I would say, music snobs, some people who are very opinionated about it. What is a band that most of your friends and contemporaries love that you can't stand?
Radiohead.
Wow, that's surprising. Okay, because I do love
I have
Radiohead.
a lot of love for the Bends and OK Computer. That's where it ends for me. And also, I've said this before with many people. I'll if I'm fine without hearing Radiohead for the rest of my life.
Okay, wow. So
Sorry to disappoint you, buddy.
That's all right. That's all right, man. It's okay. We had a good run. No, just kidding. So for me, it is Social Distortion.
Yeah.
So I will say that there's a period like the very beginning stuff, the Mommy's Little Monster and the stuff from Another State of Mind. We're losing anybody who was tuned in here. But anything from that era, I like the first album. But anything past that, Mike Ness, Man in Recovery, solid dude. Just not a fan. Sorry. All right.
She's really upset about the Radiohead thing.
What you?
Sorry.
Hopefully Gabby's not watching. So let's say you just got paid today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Day off. It's your birthday, your sober date, whatever. You're gonna treat yourself. What does a self date for Jonny Phillip look like, beginning to end?
In Nashville or in Milwaukee?
Wherever you are. I mean, you could fly yourself somewhere. You're in recovery now.
Oh man, I would go to New York for the day and eat all of the food that I could. I would go to Little Frankie's and go get Italian food. I'd go to Joe's on Houston, get a slice. I would go get a pastrami sandwich. I mean, all of the food, and then I would go see a great show in New York.
What would be the show? What would be the show? Hopefully, like this is your day.
Oh my God, man. I'd like to see a Replacements reunion show in New York.
Ooh, that would be great. I'd
Which
join
they
you.
played Forest Hills Stadium, the tennis stadium, like 6 years ago there. I missed it though.
That's pretty good. Well, like I thought, we were gonna hit the hour, and still, I would be unsatisfied with the length of time that we had to talk. So let's give a quick shout out if you want to plug any music, if you want to say anything before we go, a message of hope to those who are out there, whatever you want to say, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Couple things. My band Limbeck has shows coming up in California, which I can't really say much details about those because they're not announced yet.
All right. Is there a website?
Yeah, limbeck.net.
How do you spell that?
LIM as in man, BECK.net. You can also catch us on Instagram and Facebook, all that jazz. But we have maybe 3 shows in September, and then we have 4 shows coming up in the Midwest that are also not announced yet. But we're also slowly creeping on making a new record right now for the first time since 2006.
Wow. That's cool, man.
We have maybe 14 loose demos made, but it's going so slow. We all are so busy, and between those guys, they have 7 big jobs.
Wow. Okay.
But set aside from that, please keep an eye out for the Limbeck stuff. And then also, if you need help of any kind, whether it be substance abuse, mental health, reach out to somebody, please. Even if it's the hardest thing to do ever, because somebody will be there to listen and help you and give you direction, and never stop talking about it, because talking about it's half the battle. And just know that you're not alone out there, because I thought that I was, even though that I had hundreds of people in my circle that'd be willing to help me. Just don't go it alone. Talk to somebody about it. Reach for help, because it's there for you. And no matter what you're coming off of, you can absolutely get sober and live a better life. I mean, I never thought that I could make it 10 days or 10 weeks without drinking. I've made it 10 years. I have moved across several states, which I never thought I'd move out of Wisconsin. I went back to college with that. I've been studying for 2 years to be a drug and alcohol counselor. I've been working in treatment. I started making my own solo songs under the name Mini Meltdowns, which I never thought that I would ever make my own songs ever. Because when I was drinking, I had all these hopes, but never made it happen. Just change your life, man, because there's so much more out there for you.
It's worth it.
And God loves you.
It's awesome, man. So, man, thank you for all that you do in the recovery community. I'm so glad that I got to meet you as a coworker, and most of all, I'm so glad that we've become friends. And I love you very much, man. You help a lot of people, and just such a kind spirit. And it was good to have you on. You have to come back.
Thanks a lot. I'd come back anytime, Jason. I'm glad to call you a friend too. I love you, brother.
Love you too, man. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is a great show. I had a lot of fun here, as always. Like, I wish it could go on a lot longer. So that's how I always mark it as a good one. So thanks for joining us, guys. And as we always say, there's 1,000 ways in and 1,000 ways out. And you hope you find your way. Tune in next week.
Thanks.